Howdy, y'all. I'm Judge Nelson, and I'm the law around here, and I'm gonna stop doing that accent. Today, I'm going to teach you the new mechanics of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So pay attention so you don't end up on the wrong side of the laugh total. Okay, now I'm done. Outlaw is a new game term that refers to any card with the assassin, mercenary, pirate, rogue, or warlock creature type. Outlaw is not a creature type. If an effect asks you to choose a creature type, you can't choose Outlaw. A card, spell, or permanent is an outlaw if it has the assassin, mercenary, pirate, rogue, or warlock creature type. It doesn't matter if it has more than one of those creature types. As long as it has at least one, it's an outlaw. Certain abilities reference outlaws. If an ability refers to an outlaw or whether a player controls an outlaw, it's referring only to permanents with one or more of the creature types specified above. Other abilities will refer to an outlaw spell or outlaw card in a zone other than the battlefield. Those abilities refer to spells and cards with one or more of the specified creature types. We always knew it was a crime to stifle your opponent's fetch land, but now we have the rules for it. A player commits a crime as they cast a spell, activate an ability, or put a triggered ability on the stack that targets at least one opponent, or at least one permanent spell or ability an opponent controls, or at least one card in an opponent's graveyard. The spell or ability doesn't even have to resolve. As soon as you're finished casting the spell, activating the ability, or putting the triggered ability on the stack, you've committed a crime. A player can commit only one crime per spell or ability they control. Targeting multiple opponents, permanents, spells, abilities, or cards with the same spell or ability doesn't constitute committing multiple crimes. Changing the target or targets of a spell or ability won't affect whether or not the controller of that spell or ability has committed a crime. Only the initial targets chosen for that spell or ability are used to determine whether or not its controller committed a crime. What does every villain need if they're going to pull off a big heist? A nefarious plot. So plan ahead and get your game plan rolling. To plot a card, pay its plot cost and put it into exile face up. On a later turn, you may cast it as a sorcery without paying its mana cost. Plot cost means anytime you have priority during your main phase while the stack is empty, you may pay cost and exile this card from your hand. It becomes plotted. Exiling a card using its plot ability is a special action. Once you announce you're taking that action, no other player can respond by trying to remove that card from your hand. Plot cards can still be countered, just when they're cast. You can't cast a plotted card the same turn it became plotted. On any future turn, you may cast that card from exile without paying its mana cost during your main phase while the stack is empty. If you're casting a plotted card from exile, you can't choose to cast it for any other alternative costs. You can, however, pay additional costs, such as kicker or spree. Any mandatory additional costs must still be paid to cast the spell. If a plotted card has X in its mana cost, you must choose 0 as the value of X when casting it without paying its mana cost. It's dangerous to go alone. Luckily, we have our trusty steed, which is very similar to a vehicle, except it's always a creature. Saddle N means tap any number of other untapped creatures you control with total power N or greater. This permanent becomes saddled until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Saddled isn't an ability that a creature has. It's just something true about that creature. It won't stop being saddled until the turn ends or it leaves the battlefield. Creatures with saddle can attack or block as normal even if they aren't saddled. If a permanent becomes a copy of a saddled mount, the copy won't be saddled. You may activate a permanent saddle ability even if that permanent is already saddled. An ability that triggers when a creature attacks while saddled will trigger only if that creature was saddled when it was declared as an attacker. In the continuing saga of everything is just kicker, introducing Spree. Build your own spell from a whole menu of options, if you can afford to pay for it all. Spells with Spree have a plus sign indicator in the upper right corner of the card frame. This has no rules meaning and only serves to remind players that at least one additional cost is required to cast the spell. Each additional cost and associated mode in the text box is also preceded with a plus sign indicator. These symbols also have no rules meaning and are only there to remind players that the listed costs are additional costs. You must choose at least one of the listed modes and pay its associated additional cost in order to cast a spell with Spree. You choose the modes as you cast the spell with Spree. Once modes are chosen, they can't be changed. If a mode requires a target, you can select that mode only if there's a legal target available. Ignore the targeting requirements for modes you don't choose. No matter which modes you choose, you always follow the instructions in the order they are written. You can't choose the same mode more than once. The mana value of a spell with Spree is determined only by its mana cost in the upper right corner of the card. It doesn't matter which modes you choose or which additional costs you pay, including any additional costs imposed by other effects. No player can cast spells or activate abilities in between the modes of a resolving spell. Any abilities that trigger won't be put onto the stack until the spell is done resolving. If a spell with Spree is copied, the effect that creates the copy may allow you to choose new targets, but you cannot choose new modes. If all targets for the chosen modes become illegal, the spell won't resolve and none of its effects will happen. If at least one target is still legal, the spell will resolve but will have no effect on any illegal targets. If an effect like Plot allows you to cast a spell with Spree without paying its mana cost, you must still choose at least one mode and pay the associated additional costs. That's it for the rules. Thanks for watching.